What's going on? What's going on? IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart listeners, you are tuned in to Just Fans Talking Sports, where the voice of the fan matters. And I am your host, EJ. Again, this is Just Fans Talking Sports, where the voice of the fan matters, with your host, EJ. And I'm looking forward to having a nice conversation today. We're not gonna cover a lot of material today. Pretty much the conversation is going to be about Adam LaRoche and Kenny versus Kenny Williams, Chris Sale versus Kenny Williams, the White Sox players versus Kenny Williams, who is the vice president of baseball operations for the Chicago White Sox. So, let's go ahead and let's jump right into this conversation. You can follow me live on our Just Fans Talking Sports Facebook group page. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at Sports with EJ. Again, you can follow us live all throughout the week at our Just Fans Talking Sports Facebook group page. Anyone can join the page. We have a lot of conversations going on right now. Right now, I'm currently debating two twin brothers, Sean and Chauncey Edmonds, on a nice little conversation that our guy Jeremy put up. Pretty much, he has a post up here about the WWF and WCW. Some wrestlers, he has I think it's who is this? Goldberg, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Diamond Dallas Page, Sting, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and Nash of the NWO, Black and Red versus Mankind, the Heartbreak Kid, The Rock, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Triple H, and The Big Show. And it's a debate right now who's going to win, who will win this fantasy match. And to me, it's Team Stone Cold all day. So if you're an old school wrestling fan, you enjoy wrestling back in the day, go come visit us at Just Fans Talking Sports at our group, public group page on Facebook. Chime in. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy saying that that Sting will defeat the Undertaker. That would never happen. The Sting is no match for the Undertaker. And by the way, Sting finally retired. That's a question I want to ask before we get into our show. Why does wrestlers stay along? They stay around till they're like 50 years old, right? I mean, Sting has to be pushing 50 years old. I remember being 9 to 10 years old, and Sting had to be in his mid 30s at that time. These wrestlers stick around for a very, very, very long time. But anyway, we're going to head into our conversation. We're not going to talk all about the White Sox today, but I can say a good 96% of this show will be about the White Sox today, because it's a very interesting conversation that covers a lot of ground. As a worker, do you feel comfortable with your employer or your employee, your employer allowing a fellow employee to have the kid around in your workspace every day? It's not once in a while. It's not family day and in the locker room, or family day in the clubhouse, but every single day. Are you okay with that? Do you see anything wrong with that? Especially keeping it in the context of a professional locker room, whether that's Major League Baseball, the NBA, NHL, or the NFL. Are you okay with, do you see anything wrong with the kid being around the locker room every single day? And I put emphasis on every single day. Also, we have to discuss, was this really, because Chris Sale, the best player on the White Sox, one of the, in my opinion, he's a top 5 pitcher in all of baseball. He was very, 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 very candid, about his opinion and his, pretty much being very critical of Kenny Williams, who pretty much has the second highest position in that clubhouse. I mean, he was very critical of him through a whole lot of open shots, and it wasn't no passive aggressive message at all. He was very direct about Kenny Williams. So I'm going to read some of Chris Sale quotes, but do you think that there is a bigger issue, that this was just the tip of the iceberg, that a lot of players really don't trust Kenny Williams and they want Kenny Williams replaced? They don't want to have Kenny Williams around. Do you believe that this is a bigger issue than just Drake and Adam LaRoche? So we're gonna definitely discuss that. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time talking about the brackets, the NCAA brackets, and of course, this is March Madness, people. And we've seen some madness already. The Michigan State Spartans made a lot of people across the country who participate in brackets, and a lot of people in Las Vegas. A lot of people. It made a lot of people mad because they went out in the first round. This is a Michigan State team that a lot of people, including myself, believe should have been a number 1 seed, and they got knocked out by Middle Tennessee State in the first round. A number 15 seed knocks out a number 2 seed, and a lot of people had Michigan State in the Final Four. A lot of people had Michigan State, in the final, in the championship game, and a lot of people had Michigan State picked to win the entire tournament, and they got knocked out in the first round. It wasn't the only upset, but that was the biggest upset, and it's probably one of the biggest upsets of all time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and shouts out to my Chicago Bears for adding Akeem Nicks to that defensive line. It just, it's just another addition for the Chicago Bears, another great addition in the offseason. And I can't wait I'm excited about the Chicago Bears and watching that defense play, because I believe they're going to pick a defensive lineman with the number 11 pick in the draft. They traded away Martellus Bennett in a 6th round draft pick for a 4th round draft pick to the New England Patriots, and the New England Patriots also signed Shea McClellan, but we're not going to talk about that today. But we're going to discuss a little bit about did you guys like that pick? I mean, like that trade? And there's some people that were saying that the Bears didn't receive a lot in return, or they should have received more, or why did we trade away a 6th round pick? I mean, a pick and Martellus Bennett, and only receive the 4th round pick back. But when you break down the money situation, you see how much money the Chicago Bears are saving, how much more money they have to play with to improve this team. You'll probably change your mind a little bit. All right. So when we come back from this first break, we're going to get into our conversations. You are tuned in to Just Fans Talking Sports, where the voice of the fan matters, with your boy EJ on IntellectualRadio.com, also our iHeartRadio station. See you after the break.
Like never before. Like never. Never before. Like 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 never before.
Welcome back to Just Fans Talking Sports on IntellectualRadio.com. Again, this is Just Fans Talking Sports on IntellectualRadio.com. And I am your host, EJ, holding it down again. And let's just go ahead and jump into this conversation. We'll get to the NCAA conversation at the tail end of the show, and the Bears conversation at the very tail end of today's show. But let's go ahead and jump into this conversation because the producer of this show and I was just having a conversation about the Adam LaRoche, Drake LaRoche, Chris Sale versus Kenny Williams controversy going on right now with the Chicago White Sox. And first and foremost, I have to say this. I can almost guarantee that the White Sox, they want publicity. I mean, they want people to be, interested into their brand. They want people to be interested into the White Sox. They underachieved last year. Went out, made a couple key signings, to improve their team. And this was the saying pretty much. People were pretty much saying that if the Chicago White Sox players who underachieved last year, like Adam LaRoche, which we'll get to him, Adam LaRoche, Melky Cabrera, who actually played, who played better towards the end of the year. If Cabrera, LaRoche, if you got anything from Garcia, if those guys, Adam Eaton, who actually played better in the second half of the season, because he had a very terrible first half of the season. So the belief was if those 3 or 4 guys can get it together, have a good first, start the season off good, they can hit towards their average, where the average is in the career historically, what the career average is, and with the additions of Frazier, you also added Lowry from Oakland. They felt like, man, we could put ourselves in a good position to score more runs for a decent pitching staff. So the White Sox wanted publicity. They wanted some people talking about them, and they wanted to achieve. And I was listening to all type of sports radio this week where they talked about how the Chicago White Sox placed a great emphasis on being more focused in the preseason. In spring training, and starting the season off being more focused and narrowing down. Again, they made some very good additions to the ball club to shore up that defense, because they was one of the worst defensive teams in the entire league last year, and they have been for the last 4 or 5 years. The White Sox just have they fundamental baseball and the White Sox just don't go hand in hand for whatever reason. So with all that being said, the White Sox wanted some good publicity, some good coverage from the organizational standpoint, but they did not want it this way. So, and I'm quite sure everyone knows about it, because this story has transcended sports. This story of Adam LaRoche and his son Drake LaRoche has, it was on, I think, Good Time, Good Time America. I don't know if I'm butchering the name of that show. It was on The View. It's been on other shows, other news shows, not just sports shows, because people want to know. It's an interesting conversation. So what I want to know from the listeners out there today, I'm going to read some comments from our Just Fans Talking Sports group page for those who have commented throughout the week on this. I want to know, first and foremost, how do you feel about, how would you feel if you had an employee who was allowed by his employer to bring his kid or her kid to work every single day? I'm not talking about, listen, let's make this very clear. We're not talking about every once in a while, all right? We're not talking about every once in a while. For those who are watching me on Facebook, what's going on? I see you guys. Kenneth, what's going on? Ken, what's going on? Darian, what's going on? Smith, what's going on? Marcus, see you guys. Shouts out. Thanks for tuning in to the show this morning. But listen, we're not talking about every once in a while. We're talking about every single day. Drake LaRoche had a locker room next to his father. So let's just quickly summarize and break this down, okay? Kind of putting all the pieces together, because when I first heard the story myself, I was like, man, I can understand where Kenny Williams coming from. I truly did. I said, I don't see anything wrong with the kid being in the locker room, but I understand Kenny Williams' perspective. But the more I heard about this story, and more I read this, from the story, I heard from the agent heard from multiple sports outlets, sites, just listening to the conversation, reading Adam LaRoche statements, Kenny Williams' original statement, then hearing Kenny Williams' response, listening to Chris Sale and reading his statements, listening to Adam Eaton, who's the White Sox player rep in that clubhouse, and listening to Robin Ventura and then reading Jerry Reinsdorf's statements, you can kind of get a good picture of what happened here. So let's go ahead quickly and catch everyone up, catch everyone else up what's going on. So just to briefly summarize, Adam LaRoche 2 years ago signed the deal in the offseason with the Chicago White Sox. He was looked at, being a left-hand back. They can bring some pop, to that line, into the middle of that lineup. So Adam LaRoche signed a 2-year deal with the Chicago White Sox worth $25 million. He made $12 million last year. And let me just throw this out here right now. Let's not even bring up Adam LaRoche performance. Who cares that he sucked last year? That does not matter at all. We're just strictly talking about this controversy with his son being there every day. Okay, so going back, Adam LaRoche signed a 2-year, $25 million contract. According to Adam LaRoche and his representative, his agent, and it also according to some players, that Adam LaRoche, it wasn't in the written contract, but it was a verbal handshake agreement that, look, a big part of me signing here because Adam LaRoche, who was with the Washington Nationals, had his son around the locker room a lot. I don't know how much the percentage of the time it was, but his son was around the locker room a lot. So Adam LaRoche had, pretty much put it out there that this is something very important to me. He's a man of faith. He holds true to his values, his core values, his family situation. He has something worked out in Washington, which he had worked out in Chicago with the public schools. Or maybe it was the public schools it was in Kansas, where he's originally from, where they'll give him 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks of work or something like that. And then his son pretty much was homeschooled, turned the work in because they had strong views about the school system, and he wanted his son around him because he was around his father, who was a professional baseball player as well. So according to Adam LaRoche and his agent, they reached out. They said, look, this is very important for Adam, who wanted his son to be around a lot in the locker room. Rick Hahn, pretty much checked with Robin Ventura. So Ventura gave Hahn an okay. Hahn said it was cool. So everybody was cool. He was there all of last year. He was in the locker room. The entire, he was there. He has, like I said, he has a locker. Drake LaRoche has a locker, man. A locker next to his father, and our producer right now shaking his head saying that's crazy. And a lot of people have that same mindset that it's crazy that a player will be allowed to have his son there every single day. So pretty much Adam LaRoche at the beginning of spring training, having some back issues and things of that nature. So he released, pretty much it came out of nowhere that Adam LaRoche decides to retire. A day later, then we come to find out that his son was asked by a White Sox the upper management personnel that his son that pretty much dial it back from his son being in the locker room. So he decided to say, you know what, if that's the case, I will leave that $13 million on the table, and I understand that Adam LaRoche has made a whole lot of money in his baseball career, but $13 million is a lot to turn down. But you know what? Hey, I'll say this. Adam LaRoche, hey, it was his core value. He said family first. He put some tweets out about family first. And then this is when all the controversy started. According to Adam LaRoche, he was told that by Kenny Williams that, you know what, having your son there even 50% of the time is too much. He needs to be there somewhere between 0 and 49% of the time. Okay, Adam LaRoche later released a full explanation of a letter explaining everything in detail from his perspective, and he stated that Kenny Williams later came back after that. Which way? Because he didn't retire originally after being told to dial it back. Because according to Adam LaRoche and his agent, doing the contract negotiations, he said if it was ever issued by the players or by the manager or anyone in the front office, any staff members, that bring it to him. If Drake is ever issued, which according to everyone in that locker room that who's chosen to spoke up, that he hasn't been an issue at all. The key hasn't been an issue. There've been a lot of players that come out and said that he was okay. They said, man, you know what? We have no problem with Adam LaRoche, with son Drake LaRoche being here, very respectful kid. So a lot of players come out supporting. Chris Sale, we're going to get to him, it's kind of eerie, but he has Adam LaRoche and Drake LaRoche jerseys hanging up, in his locker room, representing hard for him, because according to Chris Sale and a lot of players, not just in the White Sox clubhouse, but around Major League Baseball who know Adam LaRoche, said that Adam LaRoche is like a mentor. He's a great example of a father, and just a great example, just a great mentor type of player, and a great teammate to have in the locker room. So going back to the story, so according to Adam LaRoche and his agent, that Kenny Williams, Kenny Williams came to him after being told after somewhere between 0 to 49%. Later came back to him and stated, watch this, that your son is not allowed, period, in the locker room. And he stated that that's why he retired, because he had a decision to make. Pretty much, it was like, and if I can find that quote before the end of the show, I'm gonna read one of the quotes from Adam LaRoche, which was kind of powerful quote. But pretty much, Adam LaRoche is like, man, it comes to a point in time which he told the White Sox players where you have to choose. Pretty much, you have to take a stand. What you believe in your heart to be true, or would you being asked what to do? And he pretty much said, I'm not gonna put anybody in $13 million or the White Sox in front of my kid. So he chose his kid. He chose to retire. He wrote a beautiful letter. He said he has no problem. This was no issue with the White Sox organization, the staff members, the general manager, or the general manager Hahn, Robin Ventura, the manager, or the players at all. He said it was a fundamental disagreement between him and Kenny Williams. Of course, Kenny Williams comes out, his original statement, which I had no problem with Kenny Williams' original statement. Kenny Williams pretty much was stating that they had to think about the long run, and players in the future. If they allow this to happen, pretty much paraphrasing, we had to change our policy up to allow, if we're allowing Adam to do this with Drake to be here every day, what happens if other players want to have their kids there every day? Well, are we going to allow for pretty much a locker room full of kids every single day? So he decided that, we needed to make a change. So he addressed Adam, but the discrepancy comes in because Adam LaRoche and his representatives are saying that Kenny Williams told him to dial it back, which appears that he didn't really have a problem with that. He was prepared to do that, but he later on came back and told him zero, pretty much he's not allowed in the clubhouse at all. And that's when Adam LaRoche decided to retire. And you have a lot of players coming, a lot of players nationally, like Bryce Harper, and coming out to defend. Jake Arrieta has come out to defend Adam LaRoche and giving him props, and pretty much making it a White Sox problem, which, according to reports, again, Rick Hahn had no problem with this. Robin Ventura had no problem with this. A lot of the players didn't have no problem with this, which is also another discrepancy, but it was a Kenny Williams issue, and that's what Chris Sale, who has some very strong words for GM Kenny Williams. He has some very strong words for GM Kenny Williams, and we're going to read those a little later. I'm going to go ahead and quote one on the top of my head that it sticks out. He said that yesterday, the wrong guy walked out the locker room, pretty much. And he pretty much is saying that Kenny Williams has to go. And that's another angle that we're going to talk about today, because I think that although Chris Sale, who said that Adam LaRoche has been like a mentor to him, meant a lot to him, and Drake LaRoche was great to have in the locker room, I believe that Chris Sale and a lot of the White Sox players are just tired of Kenny Williams in general anyway. And I can understand that. So you may say, EJ, what's your take on this? Well, my take on this, before we go into reading comments from our Facebook family, if anybody y'all got other comments from our Just Fans talking sports group family, so before I read those comments, and before I read comments and direct quotes from players and general managers and all that, let me share my perspective. My perspective is this. I believe that although the Chicago White Sox players, the vast majority, now I don't have any inside sources at all, so I'm not saying it's from inside source. Yes, I've read a couple articles. There's one article from The Score who's put out an article pretty much saying that there were staff members and a couple players who had an issue with it. No, not with the kid, but with the kid being there as much. And before all these details came out, I personally told a couple of my friends and coworkers that I believe this will happen. publicly, of course, a lot of players are going to support Drake LaRoche because according to every people in Washington, according to people in Chicago, he's a great kid, like his father, just a great individual. He was really no problem having around. But I believe that, again, it's my personal opinion, that a player or two and maybe a staff member or two went to Kenny Williams behind closed doors because they knew that Rick Hahn and Robin Ventura didn't have a problem with it, and they knew that the majority of players in that locker room did not have a problem with it, and they wouldn't dare come out and share that they're the ones who don't want Drake around as much because it makes them come out to be a bad guy. And also, number one, because according to our reports, that Drake LaRoche really is a good, well-mannered, respectable, and likable kid. So they didn't want to make it about Drake LaRoche and we having a problem with him. So to avoid all that, they probably went over Robin's head, over Rick's head, and went to Kenny Williams, who everyone knows Kenny Williams is not one to shy away from controversy whatsoever. He kind of makes it, to me, it appears that Kenny Williams, he kind of prides himself in being involved in controversy. As we all remember the verbal spats between him and Ozzie Guillen, and the verbal spats between him and probably the greatest White Sox of all, not probably the greatest White Sox player of all time, the Hall of Fame legend, who did it the right way, didn't cheat, Frank Thomas. So he's not one to shy away from controversy whatsoever. So he said, okay, I'll be the one to go ahead and put it out there, which I personally believe probably did happen. Now, but according to Chris Sale beef is that Kenny Williams just flat out lied. He told the players in a meeting that the coaches had issues. Then he told some of the coaches that the players had issues. Then he came out and told everyone that the ownership had issues with Drake LaRoche being there every single day. So the players pretty much like, we can't trust this dude. And I just think the players don't want Kenny Williams around anyway. So my perspective, my opinion on all of this in a nutshell is this: that I believe that it's okay to have the kid. It's okay to have the kid around. There's no problem with the kid being around. But I do believe that having a kid there every single day, although he may be a likable kid, is a little bit too much. Even if 99% of the players and staff members don't have an issue with it, if one player has an issue with it, and I can understand why one player wouldn't dare come out and say, I'm the one who had an issue with it. I can understand, because all the backlash that he would get and all the negative attention that would go towards Adam, but especially Drake LaRoche, which is happening anyway. So I can understand why a player or a staff member may not want to be the one out of 24 or the one out of 35 to say anything. But if one player has a problem with it, it's an issue. Everyone knows. Think about this in our daily jobs, right? In the jobs that we have. There are certain conversations that take place in an adult job, right, that kids probably shouldn't be listening to. There's confidential conversations that take place in the locker room or even in our work offices. Guess what? It can be viewed as our sanctuary, right? It can be viewed as the players' sanctuary, where players may talk about exploits they had the night before, or just anything. It's their locker room, it's their clubhouse. They feel comfortable. They feel like, man, this is the one place where the fellas can be the fellas. And there's a lot of conversations going on. Of course, the locker room is beautiful and upbeat when players win, when a team wins. But what happens when a team loses and players don't feel so joyful? What happens when a team loses and players are dropping F-bombs all over the place? Or and if you follow sports, in post game interviews, you always hear loud music in the background. And some of the music, maybe a 14-year-old kid or a kid shouldn't be listening to it. Do you have the issue of players getting undressed and taking showers? So there's a whole lot of issues that we could talk about in regard to a kid being in the locker room. So that's why I personally believe, when I originally heard the story, and I still believe, that a player, that a kid, the locker room, a clubhouse, in any professional sports, is not a place for a kid to be, no matter how likable, respectful, and no matter what kind of boundaries are set up. It's just not a place for any kid to be every single day. I can understand family days. I can understand every now and then, but every single day to me is a bit too much. And I have no problems with the White Sox saying, you know what, we allowed it. We allowed it. It was okay. But Kenny Williams should have just came out and said, you know what? It was allowed. It was okay. You know what? But I felt like, which he pretty much did to Adam LaRoche, that we had to change it up because, you know what? What if 3 or 4 more players say, you know, I want my kids around every day? And there are other examples of Ken Griffey Jr., Prince Fielder. There are a lot of examples of Major League Baseball players who were around when they were kids. And had their kids around, but it was not every single day. I was listening to a story on, I believe it was ESPN, and he was, and pretty much he was breaking down one of the sports personalities was breaking down the fact that I believe it was the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Matt Williams had a son there, and a player actually got injured and landed on a disabled list because he was he was going in practice pregame snagging fly balls, and then he didn't see the son of Matt Williams. He ran into him, and he actually was injured and missed time because of that. And there's a lot of clubhouses. The Baltimore Orioles are one that came out and said it. There are a lot of clubhouses who wouldn't allow kids in the locker room that much, and there are some clubhouses who don't allow kids, period, in the clubhouse like that. And you know what? It's really up to the White Sox. It's really up to the organization. They do reserve a right to change policy up. They do deserve a right. Think about this. I believe it's the New York Yankees. And the New York Yankees, you can't wear your hair, sir, past a certain length. There's other dugouts where they don't allow you to wear. I think it's facial hair. I think the Yankees are the organization with the facial hair. It's another organization that has an issue with your hair being down a certain, past a certain length. So clubhouse rules are, they're up to the discretion of those who run the clubhouse. And upper management. So Kenny Williams changing his mind, to me, shouldn't be an issue at all. It really shouldn't be an issue. There are some that say, you know what? Well, not really Kenny Williams changing his mind, but the front office changing their policy on it is, it's not an issue. And I can understand where Kenny Williams come from. Now, the issue that I have with Kenny Williams is this: as a White Sox fan, yes, I cheer for the White Sox and the Cubs. Go ahead and crucify. I always get crucified all the time when it comes to that. I cheer for them both equally. I love all things Chicago sports. But as a White Sox fan, I have to say this, that I believe Kenny Williams just in general I believe it's just time for him to go. His decision making, there have been countless, numerous occasions where he has pretty much kind of went over the heads of Rick Hahn, who's the general manager, and Robin Ventura. You can tell that there's some friction there with the players, and it's starting to bubble out. It's starting to boil out, and it become a national issue now. But I just believe outside of this Drake LaRoche issue, that Kenny Williams is an issue. It is time for him to go. It's time to part ways. The way he viewed things and how he goes about business is just not good for the organization any longer. So it's just time to part ways, period. But Kenny Williams should allow, and I agree with Chris Sale, Kenny Williams should have had a conversation with Robin Ventura, who was blindsided by this, with Rick Hahn, who probably was blindsided by this or told at the last minute. He should allow those two to address the clubhouse, because Chris Sale said it would have been better from those two, because according to Chris Sale and other players, that the team was, they were getting along very well, gelling very well, the new guys. It was a good atmosphere, and he said pretty much Kenny Williams came in and destroyed that, and he called him a bold-faced liar. So I believe that the way that Kenny Williams has gone about business for the last few years is just bad for the White Sox brand. Let Rick Hahn run the organization. Let him run the team. Let him do what he's supposed to do and manage Robin Ventura as Robin Ventura manages that locker room, because they put Robin Ventura in a bad spot where Robin Ventura pretty much was like he had to convince his players not to boycott that day's game, because they were going to boycott that game. So I believe that Kenny Williams, the way he handled it, the way he went about it, was wrong. But I do stand by that a kid should not be allowed in the locker room that much. When I come back from the break, I'm going to read some comments, because we have a lot of comments that are coming in right now. And then we're going to also read some quotes from Chris Sale and Kenny Williams. You are tuned in to Just Fans Talking Sports on IntellectualRadio.com.
never before. Like 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 never before.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You are tuned in to Just Fans Talking Sports, with the voice of the fan matters. And I am your host, EJ, producer Earl. How much time do I have left? Okay. So we're gonna, so I'm gonna read some comments. This conversation has to take place again next week, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and get to some comments before we go into go into Chris Sale comments, and I found some interesting things online that I want to read. But like I promised, my very own mother has chimed into this conversation, so I have to read her conversation because I don't want my mommy giving me a whooping, a little spanking. Okay. By the way, Mom, didn't you allow me to come to your work a couple days? When you used to work for the bank downtown. No, I'm just playing. But anyway, my mom says this. I don't think the children should be in the locker room unless it's a special designated day. There are men there, all types of conversations and languages. Even in other jobs, they cannot bring children. Let me keep. See, I gotta read. Even in other jobs, they cannot bring the children every day. This should be across the board. Not some can and some can't. There are revised rules, and it's given to the GM to relay these rules. When under Caesar, you must follow Caesar's rule. My mama said it, so I agree with my mama, and I dare you to disagree with my mama if you want. I'm just playing, but Mom, you know what? I definitely agree. I just don't believe you. You said something key, Mom. You said that the general manager Kenny Williams is no longer the general manager. He's the VP of baseball operations, I believe. Yeah, of baseball operations. That is the job of Rick Hahn. I believe that the players and Adam LaRoche, even Drake LaRoche, would have respected him more, and it probably would have came out better if the general manager was allowed to address this. But according to reports, it seemed like the general manager and the manager, Robert Ventura, was blindsided by a lot of this. So thanks, Mom. Darian says this: fast talking Kenny Williams always kept kids around the team. Why can't LaRoche? William, my guy William, what's going on, William? He says Kenny Williams is a punk. Okay, there's a lot of people who do not. Who are not fans of Kenny Williams even before this, and this just reinforces the issues going on with Kenny Williams. Darian in the comments says it's $1 billion business. They reserve the right to change the rule whenever they want. Kids have no place in the locker room, and so a lot of people are split on this. I want to go ahead and go over to a conversation, actually to an article by Dan Tolman of 670 the score.com, and he pretty much says, he put a report out there that players and staff did complain about LaRoche's about Adam LaRoche's son being there. So let me go ahead and read this. According to Nightingale, Williams' decision to ask LaRoche to scale back Drake's clubhouse presence was a direct result of the complaints, which were only shared with upper management and never spoken about amongst players, including LaRoche. And this is from Bob Nightingale. Instead, it wasn't until Williams heard complaints sat down with LaRoche and told him to scale back his son's presence in camp. He could still come to camp and be in the clubhouse, but perhaps just half the time, certainly not every day. Well, after their heart-to-heart talk, nothing changed according to multiple people in the White Sox camp. LaRoche kept bringing his son to the ballpark every day. This went on for at least 3 to 4 days. When Williams saw Drake on the field this week in the middle of practice, in the middle of a practice drill, standing on the pitcher's mound, he lost it. Williams told LaRoche that was it. He violated the privilege. No more clubhouse access. Williams later relented and went back to his original request, simply asking LaRoche to cut his son's clubhouse presence to about half the time. So, and again, go to thescore.com, read this article from Dan Tolman. So this is another perspective coming in, that there were players who didn't have a conversation with other players, and this is what I believe from the get-go. I believe that there were players, maybe 1 or 2, that didn't feel comfortable with Drake LaRoche being around, so they had a private conversation with Kenny Williams and maybe other senior executives of the White Sox, and Kenny Williams went ahead and addressed it. He addressed it. Maybe he told Rickon, your hands are tied. This has nothing to do with you. I'm going to address this. I'll be the bad guy because of your relationship with the players, whatever. I'll go in and do it. Or maybe he told Rickon, or maybe he didn't tell Rickon at all, and he definitely didn't tell Robin Ventura, which I could tell made a lot of players and maybe even Robin Ventura and Rickon upset about it. Jerry Reinsdorf has come out and pretty much said he's banned every executive member inside that clubhouse from speaking on this until he addresses the team and things of this nature. Adam Eaton has spoken about who's the White Sox rep of getting Major League Baseball. Pretty much they're going to file a grievance against Kenny Williams, which is crazy. I mean, this story is just taking a life of its own. And the White Sox are getting publicity for all of the wrong reasons. So this is just a crazy story. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this conversation? I'm gonna read a few comments that we had this week about this conversation. By the way, if you go to our page, Scott Van Pelt, the Scott Van Pelt show on ESPN, man, he had, and this is before a lot of new information was revealed, but he had a great perspective on it. I put the link up on our Just Fans Talking Sports Facebook group page. Go ahead and check that out. But let me go ahead and read some of the comments. I'm going to read a comment here from Kelvin Easter. Kelvin Easter states that I'm sorry. Hold on, I lost it. Let me get back. I'm doing kind of multitasking around post from Kelvin Easter. He had a very interesting post this issue. Here we go. All right, here we go. So this is from Kelvin Easter. He says that pretty much that saying that organization agreed to bring him to the team with permission to bring his son daily to games. The report I have says he did this with the Nationals, and there was no secret about it. Now I think the White Sox is wrong for changing their mind. You signed the player under these terms. Now, in respect to the chemistry of the team, I think it was done incorrectly. And a lot of people are actually saying that. A lot of people are actually saying that, it was just done. It was handled incorrectly, but they do believe that the White Sox organization does reserve the right to change their mind. And again, that's all I'm saying. People who are criticizing the White Sox, saying that the White Sox should be ashamed of themselves. They're a joke. It's an organizational issue. I believe the only organizational issue is that the players no longer and maybe Robin Ventura no longer trust Kenny Williams, and Kenny Williams has had some issues for the last few years. I mean, yes, he was a hero in 2005 for the White Sox, bringing the championship to the great city of Chicago, the best city in the entire world. Let me just throw that out there. But since then, and Kenny Williams has bucked up against Ozzie Guillen. Apparently, he's bucked up against Robin Ventura about how the team should be ran. He brings in the players that he wants. He kind of enforces his will, even when he got a promotion and became the VP of baseball operations. He was still handling the business of the GM. Even last year, when they were talking about the direction of the team, he kind of threw his GM and manager under the bus. So I just think that Kenny Williams in general, it's just time for him to go. Maybe Kenny Williams should have taken that job in Toronto and run the baseball operations up there, with the Blue Jays, because it's just time for a change in the White Sox organization, and that should be addressed. But again, I have no problem with the White Sox changing their mind on this, because it can get out of hand. And I don't think that the player who said anything was a rat, was a snitch and all that. Listen, it is a locker room, people. And again, I'm making this very clear. Being there 49% of the time probably is too much for a lot of people, but 49% of the time, to me, it's okay. I mean, Adam LaRoche made a decision that he was gonna walk away from $13 million. And by the way, Adam LaRoche had a back problem going on as well, so maybe they kind of weighed in. But in his opinion, man, he said he's a man of faith. He's a great role model to a lot of players. He had a huge impact on the life outside of baseball, just the life of Chris Sale. A lot of players tweeted out, on Twitter about the impact that Adam LaRoche had, and how just a great person, not just a baseball player. Well, not last year, he wasn't a great baseball player, and to his credit, he's even joked about it. But they just pretty much say he's a great player. But with all that being said, it probably was a player too that was uncomfortable. Like, man, I want to be myself. If I'm upset at the performance I just had, you know what? If I say a certain things, would Drake LaRoche be offended, or would Adam LaRoche be offended if they hear certain conversations, or if a player feel like I can't be myself, I can't address things the way I want to address things inside of this locker room? Or maybe a player went with the request and said, I want to have my kid around, and they were like, we got to pump the brakes, we got to get control of this situation right now. So it was handled wrong, but the White Sox are not wrong at all. And this goes out, I'm gonna do a man stop it for everyone that says that the White Sox organization are wrong for not allowing children to have access to the locker room. For one, it's not true. According to a lot of people around baseball, a lot of people who cover the White Sox, and even players that say that the White Sox are one of the most family and fan-friendly organizations of all of baseball. So the White Sox they don't have an issue with kids, and it's obvious. They gave it. Adam LaRoche showed up after he signed the contract. When he showed up to the White Sox, Drake LaRoche had a locker inside of the locker room already. So it shows you it is a family environment. So this right here goes out to everyone that's just throwing unnecessary shade on the Chicago White Sox.
Man, stop.
Yes, man, stop it. Man, stop it. And for the White Sox changing their mind, it's okay for the White Sox to change their mind. It's their organization. If your employer came and said, we're changing this policy, there are probably certain, it probably has to go through quality control or continuous quality improvement committees and organizations and things of that nature, before it gets passed out and implemented. But organizations change all the time, right? Professional organizations change all the time. They change policies all the time. There is nothing wrong whatsoever with them changing the policy. And there's nothing wrong with them saying we can't allow kids in the clubhouse every day, because the clubhouse, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm going to unapologetically say this. It is not an environment for a kid to be around. And there's no shade to Drake LaRoche or Adam LaRoche at all. Adam LaRoche chose. I'm not knocking Adam LaRoche for a decision. Adam LaRoche decided to make what was the best decision for him in his heart, what was morally sound to him, what was morally correct to him. He made that decision. He's walked away from $13 million. I know I'm not walking away from $13 million, but I want to also say this conversation, I've seen this conversation kind of go the other ways as well. People have criticized, pretty much saying that he's a great father. This shouldn't be about players who are and I can understand why a player did not come out and say anything about this, because players who are against a kid being in the locker room every day, then it can paint this picture that they're a bad father. No, there's no good, bad father in this at all. If a player does not want his kid around every day, that does not make a player a bad father. If a player disagrees with Adam LaRoche, it does not make him a bad father. It's just saying that this is our sanctuary. This is our place for us to unleash and release. And having a kid around can make it very uncomfortable. Williams says, get Kenny out, and the rules should be kids are only allowed in the clubhouse on certain days. I agree with you, Will. I agree with you 100% of the time. I'm going to read a comment from Daryl Calhoun. He says, there are too many voices within the organization that are speaking out. This is a clear sign to me. This is a clear sign to me that the manager is not strong and definitive. No manager will not even in control of this situation. Was not even control of the situation. Even if administration disagreed, these many voices would not be allowed this much input in a strong organization. And Daryl Calhoun, that is the comment of the day right there. I 100% agree with you. Now I will say this though. I believe that it is an organizational issue. And according to the players, that Robin Ventura has taken a lot of heat for them underperforming for the last few years, and he has went out and took the bullet from media, pretty much blaming it on him when it was really on the players for underachieving. They view Robin Ventura as a great manager who has their back, and they're playing hard for him. I just believe that it shows the dysfunction of the organization because Kenny Williams is being allowed to trump the personnel that he put in place to take care of these type of issues. Really, the general manager, Rick Hahn, these type of issues should only come to him when it's been resolved. Robin Ventura should be able to resolve these issues, but according to Robin Ventura, he didn't know about it. So I believe, again, that a player knew that Robin Ventura didn't have an issue with it, and he went to Kenny Williams, but the onus goes back to Kenny Williams. The dysfunction kind of goes back to Kenny Williams because Kenny Williams, as being the VP of baseball operations, should also understand how this can make us look from a PR standpoint and how this makes our organization look that there's too, like you said, there's too many chiefs in that clubhouse, and that the organization is viewed that the leadership is not structured properly. So what Kenny Williams should have did with having all that in mind, man, pull Robin Ventura into these conversations, pull Rick Hahn into these conversations, and allow them to address it, because according to the players were focused. They were getting along well, and they just had a new energy. And now they said this is kind of threw a monkey wrench into all the plans. So I agree with you, Daryl, on the standpoint that the organization needs to be strengthened. And this is where the ownership comes in and lay down the rules, lay down the hammer, and pretty much say, man, this is how it's going to go from now on. And if Kenny Williams stays around, if he sticks around, Robin Ventura is not going anywhere. And Jerry Reinsdorf is one of the most loyal owners in all the sports, and that's been stated by a lot of owners across, in Major League Baseball and the NBA, because he's also the owner of the Chicago Bulls. But everyone knows that the Chicago White Sox, like Jerry Reinsdorf, that's his pride and joy. He loves baseball. It's his favorite sport and things of that nature. He was even famously quoted as saying that pretty much that one White Sox championship meant more than those 6 Chicago Bulls championships, because he's a baseball guy. So Reinsdorf and the family, the ownership definitely have a lot of work to do of cleaning this mess up, because it's been a real nasty PR hit for the Chicago for the Chicago White Sox. A very, very nasty PR hit for the White Sox. So again, I don't understand why so many voices. Daryl, I can agree with you. I don't understand why so many voices have been allowed to speak on this. These voices should have been, it should have been limited to only one representative, which should have been Rick Hahn as the general manager coming out speaking on this. I'm reading another comment from Kelvin Easter. He said, leadership 101. Your word is all that you have. You never want trust to be broken with your team in sports, ministry, or business. You signed the guy under this oral agreement. If you want to change the policy after this year, the last year of his contract, fine. Unless there's a major disruption to the team, etc., that justifies revisiting this agreement, you stick it out until the year is done. I have been in leadership for over 30 years in some capacity, and this move was definitely out of the managerial suicide book. Now, if if it was that urgent, he should have met with all of his coaches, team captains, etc., and brainstormed to see what would be best to do. Policy is not written in stone. The most important commodity on the planet are people. Leaders forget this often. It doesn't take much to break morale of a team. Trust is huge ingredient to success of any organization. I have been the leader when my assistant managers broke trust with my team, and it required wisdom to regain morale. That wisdom was in favor of leaning it toward what would strengthen the morale of the team. We had remarkable turnaround because I learned and respected the team, although I was the senior director and had the right to change policy. This at best was executed in the worst way. Wisdom says leave it alone until next year. And and as we close our show out, I want people to continue to chime in. I want people to continue to send comments, because this is a conversation that is this conversation is going to be probably taking place all year. So we're definitely going to be talking about this conversation. I apologize. We wasn't able to get to the NCAA tournament talk. We wasn't able to get to the Chicago Bears talk, but we can have a little bit of that conversation. I will say this: Middle Tennessee State wrecked a lot of people's brackets. A lot of people had I got the White Sox on my mind. Had the Michigan State Spartans picked to win the entire tournament. They had them in the Final Four. A lot had them in the final game. I mean, you know what? If you're a betting person, it was smart money to bet on the Spartans because Tom Izzo, he gets his players up for these moments. But for whatever reason, it did not work out. And Mr. Valentine, Mr. Triple-Double, the best player on Michigan State, he's going to be leaving, headed over to the NBA. And I wish in some type of way, via trade and picks and remove and repositioning itself, if the Bulls miss the playoffs, they get a better draft position and maybe they could trade something and move up, because I would like to have that Valentine kid on my team any day. But we'll get to the Chicago Bulls conversation next week. Unfortunately, we have to close out. Continue to follow us on Just Fans Talking Sports on our group page. Be looking out for our website that's coming very, 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 very soon. I promise you, it's going to just expand the brand of Just Fans Talking Sports. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for everybody who tuned in live on Facebook. Man, check me out or check us out next week. Again, this is EJ checking out. This is Just Fans Talking Sports, where the voice of the fan matters, on IntellectualRadio.com, also an iHeart radio station. Tune in to them tournaments. The tournament has been crazy so far. Duke, I want you to lose. Go Yale. Checking out.
Like never before. Like never before.